Hi, this is Christopher Daniel Barnes, and I was the voice of Spider-Man on Spider-Man, the animated series, and you're listening to the Amazing Spider Talk.
Too many who know the angles, uncover and untangle all the questions and the webs left out to tangle. I'll be in 1962, last Wednesday's afternoon. They'll bend your ears with reckless self-abandon. The Amazing Spider Talk. The Amazing Spider Talk. Come swing through the air, sit back and prepare for the Amazing Spider Talk.
Hello and welcome to the Amazing Spider Talk. My name is Dan Gvozden, and I'm the founder and editor of SuperiorSpiderTalk.com.
And I'm Mark Ginocchio, founder of the Chasing Amazing blog and an editor at SuperiorSpiderTalk.com.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us for a very special edition of our show. And I don't mean special in the manner of the Essentials episodes, which have become less special with the more frequent we do them. But this one's actually pretty special. So we hope you guys enjoy this podcast and that it provides an intelligent conversation between two fans and collectors as we hope to look at the Spider-Man universe, not just the comic universe this time, in a bit of a bigger picture.
Yeah, and it's a pretty big picture here because for this episode we will be discussing Captain America Civil War, which is directed by the Russo brothers and features the debut of the Marvel Cinematic Universe's version of Spider-Man, which is played by Tom Holland.
Yeah, Mark, Captain America Civil War, it's been out for a couple weeks now, so I think we're safe to dive into a spoiler-filled review of the film. So heads up, everybody, there will be spoilers following this little ditty that we're about to hear.
Hey, shady baby, I'm hot, like the prodigal son. Big up Battolini, meeny, money, mo, and flower, you're the chosen one.
All right, Dan. So for those people out there who have not been reading your Facebook feed, we can find your thoughts on this. For me, coming into this movie, I think expectations were high. Winter Soldier, which was by the same directors, was so critically acclaimed. It's probably my favorite of the Marvel movies. We were going to have this bigger cast. We were going to have Spider-Man. Expectations high. For me, this mostly delivered, although I do find it to be inherently flawed. But I kind of like it warts and all. What's your general vibe on this?
Yeah, Mark, I was really excited to talk to you about this because I posted an okay and somewhat negative impression of the film on my Facebook wall, and then you sent me a message that was just like, hey, I'm really glad we don't have a movie review show together because we would just fight all the time. And you hadn't even seen the movie yet. You were just so sure that I was wrong about my feelings on this. And so, yeah, I think actually we're probably closer than you might realize about our feelings about this. I think the film is fine. It's okay. I think it's better in its individual elements than as a movie as a whole, and we'll talk about what that means in a minute. But yeah, I mean, straight away, I'll tell you, I thought Spider-Man was phenomenal in this movie, and yet at the same time, I kind of wish he wasn't in this movie, and that's kind of my feeling about the movie as a whole. There's a lot of things that I love in it. I just kind of feel like the movie is overstuffed and doesn't really know what it's trying to say or do in its narrative.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, and just to kind of put this out there, I mean, I think most of the Marvel movies suffer from the flaws I'm about to put out there, some more than others. So let's just, put this out there for Civil War. what was problematic about it? Well, we got yet another like uninspired, non-threatening villain with Baron Zemo here, who was well performed, but I didn't get the sense that he really had the way he was characterized, the stuff to successfully take down the Avengers and Captain America. And then, the narrative itself is flimsy. I mean, we're not dealing with the Superhuman Registration Act, but rather the Sokovia Accords about the government controlling the superhero population. So, I mean, there's some similarities to it, but then there are other kind of plot twists introduced through very contrived circumstances that drive the narrative. So that's obviously problematic, but to me, what makes Civil War kind of a good entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and probably among my favorites of the MCU thus far is that it just nails these characters and all across the board. And even with these contrivances, I still kind of get what I'm supposed to get out of this movie, which is empathizing with both sides to a degree. I always felt like when I read this story in the comic, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago, that Captain America is clearly set up to be right in the comics. Yeah. Even whereas here, I did feel that there were both were out of bounds in this. And then, of course, you have to, beyond empathizing with both sides, I mean, we talked about getting the characters right. And this movie had so many characters. There was such a margin of error for this thing to go off the rails. And even if we could question, was the Spider-Man stuff necessary to the film? No. Was some of the Black Panther stuff necessary to the film? Probably not. Did we need to see Ant-Man as Giant Man? No. But those moments were so good and brought me so much joy and just felt like the comics on the big screen, that I loved it. And that's what it boils down to for me.
Yeah, and I had fun with them too. Although I think, maybe it's just I'm so used to the superhero movies now, and I think back to like Ant-Man with that really forced Falcon appearance. I'm beginning to see through this like formula, and I feel like this movie especially, it seemed so effortless to me. Like, Marvel knows how to make these movies now. And there's such a big force in the world, and they don't need to advertise their movies. Like, Ant-Man was a blockbuster movie. Guardians of the Galaxy was like the highest grossing movie of that year. I feel at a certain point I feel advertised to in a way that I feel like the amount of time and investment that I put into these movies should allow me to not feel that way. Like, I feel like Marvel has earned our trust, and I want them to do something with that. Like, if that means like being more artful in the picture. Like, I mean, I think at least visually this film looks like it was made on a factory assembly line. There's no... Like, I hate to, here I am, and I hate to do this. I'm going to bring Batman vs. Superman into this. And they are very similar movies. But I feel like Batman vs. Superman looks like, as much as I don't like that movie, it looks like a work of art. Whereas this movie feels just like, I think they've gotten comfortable, doing what they do. And I think, to me at least, it bored me a little bit as an audience, especially the first hour of this movie where it's all set up. I was like, all right, you've earned it. Do something with it, with my trust. I don't know. Is that crazy?
I don't know if it's crazy, but I think this is just what these movies are going to be at this point. And in terms of being artful or not, it's like, I don't know, and we get into this debate, Dan, I think a lot when we talk about the comics. I mean, to me, it's more important for me to feel emotionally connected to the people I'm watching on the screen rather than the eye candy of the production itself.
Yeah, I agree with you on that too.
And as someone who has not seen Batman vs. Superman, but has had enough of it spoiled for me, from people who both liked it and not, and as someone who also saw Man of Steel, and I'm under the impression that they're similar. I mean, like, it just seems like I don't care about those characters. I don't like those characters. Those are not the characters that I read about, that I had that made me love this medium. So that those movies just don't interest me. Don't interest me, no matter how good they might look, and how how much of a spectacle they might be. Whereas, yeah, I mean, like, we got so much shaky cam in Civil War. I know you hate the shaky cam.
I hate the shaky cam, especially after Winter Soldier, where they really kept that to a minimum. And some of those, like, fight scenes, especially on the boat at the beginning of the movie, where Captain America feels and Black Widow feel so precise in their movements, it was really disconcerting to me here to see this, was an amazingly laid out fight in that stairwell between Cap and Winter Soldier and those and the, like, soldiers that are coming in. I couldn't tell what was happening, despite knowing that it was beautifully choreographed.
Right. But, you know, like I said, for me, it comes down to, like, that scene at the airport, which is just like that scene alone elevates this movie for me. And I know, like, okay, it's 20 minutes out of a 2 hour and 30-minute picture. How can, you know, what about the rest of it? But like to me, when this little experiment known as comic books as movies and the Marvel Cinematic Universe was first floated, 10 years ago, I mean, to me, like, a kind of like, that was the pinnacle of what this was supposed to be, for me. Like just watching all that unfold and watching all of these characters get these just incredible moments to shine while still just, like, kind of ruthlessly kicking the crap out of each other. It just, like, that to me is like fandom personified for me. Like, I love these characters, and I got to see them do just amazing things on, in live action. It was seeing comic book action come to life, and that's what I want in these movies.
Yeah, and I couldn't really tell you why that scene just didn't work for me at all. The tarmac scene, I think it has somewhat to do. I feel like the final scene in this movie where Tony and Steve fight has the amount of sadness in it that would come from these heroes fighting each other, and I wish that sadness pervaded the film in other places. I felt like the tarmac battle played it so safe, enough that the characters even admit to not really wanting to hit each other, and I wanted there to be some stakes. I mean, even when War Machine gets shot, he doesn't die. He just gets paralyzed, and I'm not asking for War Machine to die, but I think it would have given this story an added level of sadness. Like, all these heroes fighting should be sad, and I feel like putting it at a random airport, it's not, to me at least, it wasn't operatic enough for what this spectacle demanded. Like, throw this fight in an opera house, and man, like, it would be something completely different. But it just felt like such a hands-off thing. It felt like something demanded by production. It was like, where can we get a big open space to do this? Oh, let's do it at the airport. I just feel there's just a level to this that's missing to push it over the top for me. And while I certainly enjoyed the quips and watching the, like, giant man and his lumbering goofiness, I just felt like, there's so much more potential here for something truly great to be happening. And maybe I'm making good the enemy of great, and that's my fault. I don't know.
No, I mean, these are good points. I mean, it's not even that I disagree with them. It's like I said, it's almost like it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah,
and I'm not
I
trying
can't
to be
argue
glib.
with that.
It's just, and I think what inspired my original text to you before I saw this movie was rewatching The Force Awakens, another movie I know you had some issues with, and it's the same thing there. It's like, I recognize the legitimate concerns some people have with this, but, like, I want to be able to emotionally connect to whatever, to the movies I watch, to the shows I watch, to the comics I read. And this in Civil War did that. So that kind of makes it pass the test for me. Let's talk about Spider-Man, though, because I think, this is a Spider-Man podcast.
Yeah,
and,
sure.
Totally superfluous to this movie.
It makes no sense that he's in this movie. Like, Tony is in Germany and decides that he needs help. So I'm going to go back to Queens and get this completely untested kid and bring him to Germany with me. Completely bizarre, but nothing is better than Tony going, I have an idea, and the film cutting to the word Queens.
I was just say, I think I literally squealed like a young female in the movie theater when that happened.
I cheered as well.
We're gonna see him.
This is where all objectivity goes out the window, and I think maybe deservedly, because I thought it was a legitimately great scene that we got.
Yeah, I mean, let me just point out that I was in the movie theater with my Amazing Fantasy 15 T-shirt, so so we knew which side I was on.
I was wearing my Scarlet Spider hoodie.
There you go. So, let's be proud.
230 somethings in their pajamas.
Yeah, exactly. But this was I felt like, I mean, I was a little nervous because like I was hearing positive things, but it was like, how is this really going to be? I mean, we saw 3 seconds of Spider-Man in the trailer. And then kind of they added that little fight sequence at Winter Soldier. So you got a little bit more of him at one point. But, seeing him out of costume and with Aunt May, whew, I shouldn't be having these thoughts about Aunt May, Dan.
Well, I can't wait to see where that goes because, Robert Downey Jr. and Marissa Tomei dated in real life.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely some kind of chemistry there, which is just weird. But but I do think it was important because I feel like the last two Spider-Mans we had, I really liked Tobey Maguire as Peter, and I liked him a little less as Spider-Man. I felt like he was missing kind of the charm and the humor and the youthfulness. And then kind of the flip side of that with Andrew Garfield, I felt like he was too cool as Peter Parker, but was pretty good in costume. I felt like, but here I felt Tom Holland was great as Peter and he was great as Spider-Man. Like I got it on both ends, I think.
Yeah, he's 100% a dork. I mean, completely. And I buy him as this kind of socially aloof character. And I love it quite a bit. One of the things, before even getting to their performances, though, like one of the things I really liked is that they're not in like a house in Forest Hills. They seem to be in an apartment, and there's no like life on the walls of that apartment. Like it's very bare, and you get the sense that they maybe just moved out of a house and haven't unpacked yet. And that they're on, they're a little bit financially strapped. So there's two people living in a small apartment with not much decorations. And just from that statement alone, I think it kind of says everything. And you get this moment where Peter asks if he'll be paid to go and help Tony. And it tells you everything you need to know about, like, where these two people find themselves, I guess, in the world and at this point in their lives.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely get like the working class struggle of these characters, and yeah, I mean, it's not to kind of obsess on this, but like it is strange to me, even as someone who's read all of Ultimate, and I know that May is kind of a little more youthful in Ultimate, but it is kind of odd to me to see an Aunt May that was kind of vibrant. Like, like she wasn't like kind of sitting there like mournful or sad. You know what I mean? It was kind of like, oh, who's your friend, Peter? You know what I mean? Like, look at you. and so, and I don't know if I need to be convinced more about this casting choice or even maybe this characterization. But it's that was kind of the one element of the sequence in Queens that almost made me push back. As much as I love Marissa Tomei, I was like, we kind of joked when she was first rumored to be this part, and all joking aside, it's like, is this really going to work? I don't know. I still don't know.
I like it. I mean, like, we get a youthful Tom Holland, and it makes sense that his aunt would probably be the age of his mother.
Yeah,
someone in their mid 40s. It makes sense to me. Yeah.
But she didn't strike me as someone who was recently widowed. I guess that's part of it too. You know what I mean? It was kind of like, look at my hip, cool aunt. You're too young to be somebody's aunt.
Well, I mean, Tony Stark comes into your apartment. How are you going to feel?
That's fair. That is fair. But of course, and we've kind of been told 50 different ways, like this new Spider-Man, we're not getting an Uncle Ben story. But, I was curious to see how they were going to touch upon it in some fashion. I mean, we're clearly in the next Black Panther movie not going to get a Black Panther origin per se, but we did see the pivotal moment in his life that made T'Challa become the Black Panther. Mm-hmm. So what did you think about how they kind of addressed Uncle Ben in the movie?
I was talking to some people online, and they were like, yeah, didn't you think it was weird how they didn't bring up Uncle Ben? And I said, no, I thought that was the best part of it, is that Tony flat out asks him why. Because we see briefly that he has been testing this whole Spider-Man thing out in I guess, a decent fashion. We see him catch a bus and things like that. In this really ramshackle costume, which looks a lot like the one that Peter wore when fighting
Crusher Hogan.
Bonesaw.
Oh, right. Sorry.
It's not Bonesaw.
Oh, yeah.
In the first Spider-Man movie, he kind of says, he doesn't flat out tell the whole story of Uncle Ben to Tony Stark. He kind of, says, that. And he doesn't say the great power line. He says, helping the little people, and when you don't use the powers to help the little people, things can go bad. I'm not sure what the exact phrasing is, but you can see the sadness in there, and someone who's not really willing to tell a stranger all about his personal story. And I thought that was so much more realistic, and yeah, I don't need to hear it again, and just seeing that was enough for me to go, I get it. Okay, great, let's move on. Although I feel like we're probably going to see it in Homecoming to some extent in flashbacks.
Right. It's if this makes sense, there was an inelegance to the explanation that to me made it quite elegant. Like I felt the nuance of having this clearly socially aloof, shy kid try to explain something that maybe he himself had not fully come to terms with because of his own guilt. So he was clearly looking for words and really I mean, maybe I'm overreading here, but just a ton of nuance here. I mean, you know what I mean? It felt very real, like you said, very raw. You talk about artistry. I mean, to me, that was an artful moment. Probably one of the better ones, and it didn't even feature people in costumes.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that the performance from Tom Holland was so nuanced and so real. He just felt like a real person. I think to the same level that I felt when I first saw Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. It just felt like a fully realized character in a way that I feel like some of the other Marvel creations on the big screen haven't quite felt so alive. I think maybe Thor, and maybe that's because Thor is, a god.
Right.
or like someone like Ant-Man, who I think the characterization is a little all over the place. But this felt like a really fully formed character to me, with a lot more going on than what was written on the page. And I'm really excited about seeing Tom Holland fill out this role. And a little shocked about how much he fills out that costume, because he looks like a little bit of a shrimp. And when he puts that suit on, he's like this big hunk of a guy. Did you feel that way? Am I looking at this strangely?
I don't know. I don't know if I felt he looked like a big hunk of a guy, but yeah, I mean, he definitely looked bigger. But that's almost, I mean, that feels true to the comics, because I think like if you know, people suspected that Peter had like bulked up, but like he outside of like the Ditko issues, he very rarely looks shrimpy in costume, you know, like and he's still like, you could tell he's so much smaller than the others outside of Ant-Man.
Way to go there, Mark.
Yes. But I mean, you know, again, going back to the airport scene, where we finally got to see Spidey in action in costume. I mean, like the fact that like we've had 5 movies of Spider-Man now, and even when he's been like a little bit funnier in costume in the Mark Webb movies, like I never got the Spider-Man the motor mouth while fighting, and I love that. Like that's, you know, like it just like, you know, like to me that's always been like why, you know, Spider-Man being chatty and jokey and quippy while fighting, it's almost like a you know, defense mechanism or a way to kind of calm himself and assert himself. And I feel like they captured that really well here.
Well, I love that Tony almost like immediately regrets bringing him because he's so chatty. And that to me is 100% how Spider-Man should be portrayed, as being on like an Avengers team. It's just everybody just regrets that he's a part of the team right away. And what did you think about? I mean, we discussed this a little bit, but like his how he sits in terms of power, because you know he's not only does he stop the Winter Soldier's arm, you know, he takes down like a good number of the Avengers team.
Yeah, I mean he's definitely a powerhouse, which on the team. Which, you know, keep in mind, I mean, most of the characters in this universe are not, you know, they're kind of mechanically enhanced, not chemically enhanced or radioactively enhanced like he is. So it almost makes sense for him to have more natural brute strength than most of these characters. Certainly more than like Falcon or even or Widow or Hawkeye, or you know what I mean, like
but he goes toe to toe here with Steve Rogers.
Yeah, but I mean, Rogers he's enhanced, but like he's never been portrayed as invincible. You know what I mean? And so again, like I didn't feel that there was that far of a stretch. But something that I liked, and I kind of like thought about this after the fact, was like, you know, he would exchange fisticuffs with each of these characters, and like he would consistently get the upper hand, but like in true Spider-Man fashion, like something clumsy would happen and he would get dragged away, or like, you know, he would, you know, fall down, or like something would happen to kind of like in very subtle fashion show like that Parker look. And that to me, again, like it gets it. Like, you know, you never, you know, like I would have to like count again to hear all the times like he would punch, kick, thwip, whoa, and then he could go in another direction. I mean, like that was like a kind of a trademark there, and I loved it.
What did you think of? Let's talk about the individual elements of like the character. Like we have new webbing that actually looks like webs and not like a string. Like
right.
I love the beat in the room where Tony's like, "Well, I'm going to tell your aunt then." And he like webs the door shut. It was surprising to me, and the webs looked great. I mean, like gross and everything. Like it's what I imagine Spider-Man's webbing to look like.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that was missing from it was me. I was waiting for him to make the joke about, it'll dissolve in an hour or something like that.
Right. They're stuck in that room for an hour.
Yeah. No, I mean the webbing looked great. I know you're not wild about the costume, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, I really loved the look of the costume in the brief images that we got, but the more time that went on, and it was especially in the final shot of him with his mask half pulled up, it really felt like a CGI creation in that moment, and maybe it wasn't, but it like, I've never been a fan of the raised webbing on the previous costumes, but here I understood why they felt the need to do that, because I really felt like this costume is lacking some kind of tactile texture on it that, like, helps render it in 3D space, and I think would help make it not look like a flat CGI creation. And I don't dislike the costume. I think the design is great. I just, like, I wonder, like, that final shot looks so fake to me. Like, I kind of, like, made me pine for the days of raised webbing, which I can't believe I'm actually saying.
All right, interesting. I mean, I again, I didn't feel like an emotional attachment one way or another about it, but yeah, I felt he looked good CGI wise as he was kind of swinging around.
Yeah,
like it looks very natural. That scene where he's, where he kind of first goes after the Winter Soldier and he's kind of doing the Spider-Man crawl on top of the bridge.
Yeah,
I guess you'd call it. Like, that looked very creepy and this, like, Spider-Man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's.
Yeah, I loved all that stuff, and he takes down the Giant Man, I guess we can say.
Yes, well, it is Giant Man. Yes, or
yeah.
Goliath, I guess you could say too.
Yeah, by Empire Strikes backing him. That line,
which is a joke you didn't seem to appreciate.
To me, that joke is like borders on, like, look how clever we are kind of thing. Like, for a nerd kid in his teens, like, I would, maybe this is just me being like a Star Wars elitist, but I feel like a nerd kid in his teens would know what an AT-AT or an AT-AT is. And wouldn't necessarily say, oh, that old movie Star Wars? It just seemed like a little bit on the nose from the writing team. Like, oh, he's a young kid, remember? But perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps young people not of our generation talk that way.
I'm going to say, I mean, how many 16-year-olds have, well, I know you actually work with, like, younger actors and stuff like that. But,
and I taught high school for 5 years.
Yeah, I get it. I guess I shouldn't even finish that sentence, but I mean that didn't feel too out of line for me. I mean, like,
it's not a real problem that I have with the movie. It just kind of stuck out to me. Like, if that appeared in a comic, I think you and I would be like, that line.
Right. Fair enough.
It would be a Dan Slottism, like, that we would criticize, I think. Well, Mark, would you say, like, in terms of Spider-Man's appearance in this film, is this your dream version of Spider-Man come to reality? Like, is this your favorite cinematic version of the character? Because I've heard people say that.
I mean, I think it's too early to make that conclusion. I mean, let's see them do this over a full 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
But I'm very optimistic about what's to come. How about that?
This movie made me more excited for Spider-Man Homecoming than ever. But, like, it's completely different directors on that movie. So, who knows? But I can't wait for 2017. Bring it on.
Definitely. So kind of back to the movie as a whole, you kind of talked about the stakes of the movie earlier, kind of lacking it. But then they kind of make a very hard right in that regard in how it ends with this, like, reveal that the Winter Soldier, while he was brainwashed, was responsible for the death of Tony's parents. Yet more superheroes fighting over dead parents.
Never heard that before.
Yeah, I mean,
I couldn't believe how gruesome
Martha Stark?
this was.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very chilling scene. Both the death of Howard Stark / John Slattery / I'm trying to think Roger Sterling from Mad Men, and then Tony's mom, and this is kind of like, as if Rhodey being paralyzed and all of the bombs and guns going off at the airport weren't enough. I mean, this is clearly the moment that sells the split, and again, it kind of speaks to the portrayal and characterization of Captain America and Iron Man, but I mean, very contrived circumstances kind of brought them to this point. I mean, like, Baron Zemo lured them there only to show them a video. I mean, that's very weak, I will admit. But
I did like that it didn't go down the route of big bad boss with those like 6 other soldiers. Like,
right.
It was chilling to just see them all murdered and go, we're not going this route. Like, we're going to do something different.
It was a slick twist. But regardless, I mean, like, the betrayal was so palatable, and to me, that's where I felt very sad watching this movie. Yeah. Because like I like regardless of kind of the contrived way we got to that point, once we were there, I felt what I think I was supposed to be feeling, or at least what Marvel certainly wanted me to feel, which was kind of this profound sadness of the disintegration of these characters and their relationships to each other.
It made me wish that the Civil War wasn't in this movie, because I feel like the Civil War is really interesting, and similar to Batman vs. Superman, I feel like both movies bring up this idea of registration and how do we police our heroes and things like that. And both of them don't really know an answer to that question. They just kind of shrug their shoulders and move on to something else. And in this case, it's kind of framing Bucky for this thing. And I really wanted to see that movie where they fought over like philosophical differences. It's kind of like they injected this Civil War into this Captain America movie, and this is the brilliant ending to that Captain America movie that the Civil War kind of found its way into. And so I loved this scene. Although there is one thing that kind of stuck out to me as like an odd note. Like Tony says, like, how long have you known Steve? And he's like, I've known. And I was like, wait, when did he find this out? It seems like a very big character moment that we missed or was deleted from the movie.
It's apparently I read it. I heard that complaint too, and then I read somewhere that. And now that I think back, I remember it in the what do you call it? The scene in Winter Soldier with the computer, the Zola, the Armin Zola scene.
Yeah,
I'm saying that totally wrong, but you know what I'm talking about.
But like, if it was,
it implied that the Hydra was responsible for the death of the Starks.
Yes. But wouldn't you have liked to see like a scene where Captain America like made up his mind about how he felt about that? Like that seems like a really big thing to miss out on. Like, because this movie is Captain America's movie. Like, and if he's gonna have character growth, like I want to see how he came to this realization, and not even realization, but like how he came to his feelings about his friend being this person, and how he told himself he was okay with that. I don't know. It just seemed like a weird thing to be missing.
Yeah. Although he did say he didn't know it was Bucky. He just knew that Hydra was responsible.
Oh, he does say that in the movie?
Yeah. He's like, I knew how they died. I didn't know it was Bucky.
Oh, okay. So maybe I missed that then.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of like he knew that there was something shady. It wasn't just a car wreck.
Yeah.
But
I'm going to have to see it again, Mark. I'm just going to have to see it again.
You're going to have to see it again. But no, it felt sad. Just like on one more random side note, I really appreciated T'Challa's arc in this movie, in that end scene with Zemo. Mm-hmm. You know, how he kind of like had the opportunity to kill the person responsible for his father's death and then doesn't let him kill himself.
Yeah.
Just felt like that was, I don't know, that felt noble. I like that. And the Black Panther is such a noble character that I'm glad they went there with that.
I just feel like Black Panther and Spider-Man, like, they could have been removed from this movie, but they ended up stealing this movie. Like,
yeah,
they're the best things in this, I think.
They're the best things in this. I would also say Giant Man was pretty awesome from a surprise and visual standpoint. And then just as a last note, sweater wearing Chet Baker paprika cooking Vision. Let's get a cooking show on Netflix with that character.
I'll take it, even if it just so that we get more information about Vision, because I feel like we still don't really know who this character is or how he works in the cinematic universe. Am I alone in that?
It does rely. The movies do rely a lot on you already knowing about the character, which I think is unfair because it's not like Vision prior to Age of Ultron was a currently popular character. I mean, I think people reading Avengers in the late 60s and 70s and early 80s, I mean, I think Vision's awesome, but I've read a lot of those stories where he was awesome. Whereas he's, these days is kind of less integral.
And we're definitely headed towards a Scarlet Witch Vision romance, I think, as implied by this movie.
Yes.
Does that mean we're going to get House of M when Fox loses the rights to X-Men and
right?
And we can do that story?
As long as we don't have Scarlet Witch's children delivered by talking cows. Just what happens?
I'm just thinking about the robot from Return or Revenge of the Sith, the pregnancy robot. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been fun. I was looking forward to this conversation, and it definitely delivered on what I wanted. So I hope that's true for listeners as well.
Do you want to give grades, or is this a grade-free podcast? I won't put you on the spot.
Okay, I'll give it like a B- or something.
Okay, because I was going to say B+ for me.
Yeah, I don't think the movie's bad. I think the people that say
you wanted
it's the
something
best
more.
I wanted to see more, and I think the people that are saying this is the best Marvel movie ever, I'm like, have you seen their other movies? They're pretty good.
I mean, I would definitely rank this below Winter Soldier and Guardians of the Galaxy, but I mean, I would put this on par with the first Avengers and even like the first Iron Man, which I think were movies that were elevated by the fact that they were kind of the first of their kind. But like when you actually go back and rewatch them, there are some very serious flaws in them that kind of makes them irritating, but still enjoyable, if that makes sense.
As someone who watched all 12 Marvel movies back when Age of Ultron came out, or 11, because Ant-Man wasn't out yet, in a row, I think Iron Man holds up better than you might think. I think it's really got a unique voice. But anyway, yeah, I would put this it's like mid-tier Marvel for me.
Okay. Like I said,
I would put it around Age of Ultron.
No, I think this was this far surpassed Age of Ultron. I think I'd rather have seen this movie as the second Avengers movie than what we got.
All right. Well, agree to disagree.
Agree to disagree. All right. Well, Dan, take us home.
All right.
Because I don't want to talk to you anymore.
All right. That's fine. Of course, everybody who's listening in, you can find all of our new amazing Spider Talk and old Superior Spider Talk podcasts at superiorspidertalk.com. And you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play, the brand new Google Play, by searching for Amazing Spider Talk. And if you do, please leave us a review. We love getting your reviews because we'll read them on the show and stuff like that. And it's all fancy and the like.
Yes, and the like. Also, be sure to check out Facebook and subscribe to our sister podcast, The Ultimate Spin. And most of all, leave us voicemails at 9 Red Goblin.
Yeah, and, be sure to join our friendly neighborhood Spider Talk Members Club. Mark and I do bi-weekly members-only episodes. And on this week's, or I guess this bi-weekly week's episode, we're going to be discussing the post-credit scenes from Captain America Civil War. and I guess our hopes and desires for Spider-Man Homecoming. Next week, Mark, we're going to be doing another Essentials comic, and this time it's your choice. What Essentials comic are we going to be talking about?
Yeah, well, kind of giving the throwback we've been getting to old school Spider-Man and teenage Spider-Man, I thought we'd go all the way back in time to Amazing Spider-Man, Volume 1, number 17 through 19. It's called the original End of Spider-Man. This is the first of the Spider-Man quits his job arcs. To me, it's a true classic, and we will be talking about it. So read up on those. Awesome.
Well, Mark, where can we find you on the internet this week?
Well, you can find me on superiorspidertalk.com, and hopefully by the time you're listening to this, there will actually be articles of mine up on that site.
That would be really nice.
I know, Dan, I know. And, of course, you can find me on Twitter at ChasingASMblog. Dan, where can we find you?
You can find me on superiorspidertalk.com as well, and my Twitter at supspidertalk. Mark, you're kind of new to this whole hero thing. I saw some footage of you on YouTube, saving people around town, stopping runaway buses and stuff like that. You're like the most heroic podcaster of all time. Why do you do what you do?
I guess with how strong I am, I could play football, but I didn't do that before, so I probably can't really do that now. But for me, it's really just about helping all of the little podcasters out there, the people struggling to get their internet connections to work and to get online and talk about their favorite comics. Maybe they just want to rage about creators and they're tired of being blocked on Twitter by those creators. So I just know that if I don't try and lead the way and show them how to podcast responsibly, bad things will happen. And that kind of reminds me of my hot Aunt May, who told me with great podcasts must also come my biological clock is ticking and amazing spider talk.